Suppose we know that water flows through a hose at the rate of 26 gallons in 6 minutes. The flow rate is what we'd like to write here. Now, flow rate, the rate of flow. A rate is what we're discussing here, and a rate involves a comparison of two items which have different units of measure. When we talked about ratio, we generally talked about the idea that we were talking about the same unit. Well, here we're talking about different units, gallons and minutes. And we're going to write a rate, and a rate is written in much the same way as a ratio. You can almost think that a rate is a special kind of ratio because we're comparing 26 gallons to 6 minutes. You see, and we just kind of write a ratio using those two ideas. We call it a rate because the units are different. So it is 26 gallons in 6 minutes. And we can reduce here. 2 into 26, 13. 2 into 6, 3. So this is the same as 13 gallons in 3 minutes. Let's look at another one. A car travels 100 miles in 2 hours. The distance to time rate is, well, let's see, distance in the numerator to time in the denominator. So it's 100 miles in 2 hours. 100 miles over 2 hours. And again, we can reduce this. 100 and 2 are both divisible by 2. 2 into 100 is 50. 2 into 2 is 1. So this is 50 miles in 1 hour. Now, this is a special kind of rate. It's called a unit rate when the denominator has a single unit involved. That is, the number associated with this unit of measure is 1. So it's 50 miles in 1 hour. And a lot of times this is written another way. It's written as 50 miles per hour, as you probably well know. And we could also write it like this. Now the word per, as we mentioned before, implies the idea of division. And notice it comes from here, and the per is here, and it's divided by 1 hour idea in terms of a rate. And the notion of division and the notion of this slash as a fraction bar, you see, comes into play. And so we can write this a lot of different ways. This is read miles per hour like this as well. So 50 miles per hour, unit rate. Now, unit rate is useful in a lot of different situations. We can talk about, as we said, miles per hour, and it's so many miles in 1 hour of time. We could have a cost per gallon. If we're thinking about going to a service station and filling up the car, that's the way gasoline prices are listed as a unit rate. It is so much money for each gallon of gas, for 1 gallon of gas, cost per gallon. We might think about the rate at which reading can occur. It's so many words on each page, so it's words per page. And if we're in a grocery store and we're comparing the cost of, let's say, steaks or something like that, it would be in terms of cost per pound. Some amount of money for 1 pound or for each pound of a particular type of steak. Well, suppose we want to write some unit rates. It's just a matter of creating a situation where there is a 1 in the denominator of our rate fraction. And it works like this. If we want to write 816 miles in 6 days, then we know that when we write the rate, it is 816 miles in 6 days as a rate looks like this. Now, we would like to see a situation where we have a nice clean cancellation. That is, where the number in the denominator goes into the number in the numerator evenly. Now, well, that won't always happen, but that's one way to create a unit rate. And let's see if that happens here. Dividing 6 into 816, sure enough, it goes 136 times. So this turns out to be 136 miles over 1 day. You see, kind of like this. We say 6 into 816 is 136. 6 into 6 goes 1. You see, and so now our fraction becomes this, and it is a unit rate at this point. So we could say then that it's 136 miles per day. 136 miles per day is the unit rate. $26,000 is earned in 12 months. Suppose we want to write the unit rate or the amount earned per month. So we would be thinking of it like this: $27,000 in 12 months. And again, we want to divide 12 into 27,000, and we would hope that it goes evenly. And it does in this case. Now, by the way, if it doesn't go evenly, what are we going to do? Well, we'll just express the number that we get in that division process in terms of a decimal, and we'll have our unit rate, you see. We'll see that situation in the next problem. But let's see, 12 into 27,000 goes 2,250 times. That is, this is $2,250 in 1 month. You see, it's like this. And we would probably write it as $2,250 per month. And once again, we could use that slash idea in place of the per if we want to. For 409.4 miles on 11.5 gallons of gas, we want a unit rate, and that would be in terms of miles per gallon, you see. So we have 409.4 divided by 11.5. This is miles. This is gallons. And we go ahead and divide 11.5 into 409.4. And it may or may not go evenly. We'll just carry it out and estimate to a certain degree of accuracy, as we've seen before in division of decimals, and express our answer in miles per gallon. And that's all there is to it. Now, when we divide the numbers, it turns out to be 35 and 6/10. So it's 35 and 6/10 miles compares to, or in relationship to, 1 gallon. And we would write it more sensibly as a rate as 35.6 miles per gallon, like this. Or we could use the word per. All right, unit rates. Now, unit rate comes into play in a situation like this. Suppose a person buys 100 shares of stock, and suppose the purchase price is $1,500 for these 100 shares, and suppose after a certain period of time those shares of stock are all sold for $1,800. Suppose we'd like to write the profit per share. It's kind of a unit rate for profit, you see. So just think about, there's a clue here for what needs to be divided into what by virtue of this profit per share. This part of the problem is telling us how to go through the division process. It is take the amount of the profit and divide by the number of shares. You see, profit per share means take the profit number and divide by the number of shares. Let's calculate the profit. Let's see, the purchase price was $1,500, the sale price was $1,800, and the difference between those two would be the profit. So we take the $1,800, we subtract $1,500, that's $300, and that's the amount of the profit. Now, when we talk about profit per share, we think of profit per share like this. You see, and it's profit divided by shares. And the profit is 300, so we have a $300 profit, and we're going to divide by the number of shares, which is 100. And when we divide here, we get 3. So it's $3 of profit per share. The profit is $3 per share of this stock.